Hey, everybody. Welcome back to DDJ's Inferno, the weekly show where we discuss issues relevant to men and self preservation in a gynocentric society. And this week's episode is dubbed Dispatches from Dogshitistan. And our special guest is going to be Elizabeth Hobson from the United Kingdom. And we have now dubbed the United Kingdom as Dogshitistan because it is finally worse than in the UK than it is in the state of California, if that's possible. So with that said, welcome, Elizabeth. Go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. You're a little bit robotic, but we'll work with it. Gotta love the international internet connection, so there might be some fun. And of course, we've got Lily Even 32, the Q&A thought. And then at the end of the presentation portion of the show, guys, there'll definitely be a Q&A session for you guys to ask your questions of me or the guest. So with that in mind, we're just going to kind of jump right into things and just get started. So basically, Elizabeth wanted to come in and talk about a variety of things. So pretty much, Elizabeth, the floor is yours. I'm going to bring up our first issue that we're going to talk about today, which of course is Count Dankula. So go ahead and talk to me a little bit about that situation.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure that most of your listeners know all about it by now, but just in case anybody's been living under a rock, this Scottish guy called Mark Meechan, aka Count Dankula, wanted to piss his girlfriend off last year. So he taught her pug dog a couple of tricks, such as when he said Sieg Heil, he taught the dog to give a Nazi salute and to get really excited when he said gas the Jews. He then uploaded the video to YouTube and last week was convicted of grossly offensive behaviour under the Malicious Communications Act or something like that up in Scotland. And he's awaiting sentencing on the 20th. Hang on, wait, no. It's the 25th. He was sentenced 2 days ago. I'm not keeping up. Weekends are busy for me.
Well, fair enough. You've got kids and a husband, so I get it. So, right. And that's the thing about the UK is that you guys don't have freedom of speech protections. And there's a huge difference between harassing people online, like, death threats and things like that, and teaching your dog tricks and having dark humor. I think that is absolutely ridiculous and unconscionable. And I know that a lot of people have spoken out about it, but this is the type of thing that I believe we can't speak out about enough, because this demonstrates that it doesn't matter where you are or who you are. If you try to express yourself using sarcasm or humor, even dark humor, you're going to go to jail. And we have if you look at the history of civilization, court jesters, comedians, those types of people, they were the people that actually brought levity and the voice of the people to the halls of power. They were the people that basically were the finger on the pulse of civilization, so that these communities can express themselves. So if the lords or the people in power wanted control, they could go to these comedians, and then of course the jokes and things, they'd be like, oh, okay, this, they hate us, so maybe we need to change what we're doing. And in the United States,
it's also it's a fantastic way of smashing taboos, things that can't be spoken about.
Right.
It's an entry into that. And the intention with this, there was no malice, there was no anti-Semitism involved. It was taking the piss out of Nazis. The joke was on them. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and it was absolutely uncalled for. And the sad part about it is that there are a lot of people on YouTube and there are a lot of people online who they provide meaningful social commentary and have the ability to change the conversation, right from, from your microphone at home. Obviously, we're actually able to reach more people than we would if we were just, inviting people over for a barbecue and had this conversation. So it's one of those types of scenarios as well. And this, like I said, this whole thing with Count Dankula is absolutely ridiculous. And the reason that I bring it up is because one of the reasons I like talking to you, Elizabeth, is that you really have your finger on the pulse of these types of issues when it comes to the UK and the misandry and the double standards that comes from your government. But I'd like to compare and contrast Count Dankula's story from the story of Liam Allen. And I'm going to switch over real quick so we can take a look at this.
All right. Okay. Yeah. We can come back to hate crimes.
Exactly. So when we talk about Liam Allen, kind of give me, and obviously audience, a little bit of primer of what's going on with him or what happened with him.
Okay, so he was accused of rape, and he was, I think it was during the trial, just at the last minute, 58,000 texts were released, which proved that his accuser had asked for sex before and after the alleged rape. She'd fantasized about rough sex, and at one point confirmed to a friend of hers that it wasn't against my will or anything, which raises more questions for me, because it's like, who is this friend who obtained that information and just sat on it, and watched as this guy was facing losing his liberty over a lie?
Right.
It's quite disturbing. And so he is now advocating for anonymity for the accused.
Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. I was scrolling through the article as you were talking about it, and a quote that kind of stands out to me is, so one of the things that bothers me about this entire scenario is that when a person is accused of a crime, the police investigate. That's their job. That's what they do. They investigate, and then they arrest, and then they refer the case to prosecution. Then the prosecutors take the next step, and they go through, and potentially criminally prosecute. What bothers me about this scenario, this whole case, is that they have the text. I mean, here's a quote here from the article. It says, for the next few months, Liam's life became all about preparing for the trial. In July, his lawyers asked for full disclosures of text obtained from his accuser's phone. A month earlier, the Met had told him there were no relevant downloads, and their request was denied. So what bothers me about this is that this wasn't just the prosecutors that knew about this. This was the Met Police Department, law enforcement. Now, the reason that bothers me is because you guys had a case in the UK, and I think we talked about it a little bit when you were last on the show, where there was a man who was falsely accused of molesting a woman in the tube. And they showed video footage.
Yeah, that's Mark Pearson.
Right. And he never touched the woman, and they had the video footage showing that he never touched her. And yet he went all the way to trial.
And not only that, but I mean, they deliberately messed with the footage and slowed it down so to give the impression that there actually was time.
Right.
And yeah, and these cases are not, individual cases. Sorry, my partner's just telling me I'm talking far too loud. I mean, last year, 916 people had charges dropped over this failure to disclose evidence that would either harm the prosecution's case or aid the defense case. And yet we've got the Attorney General, Jeremy Wright, who's been saying that there's no evidence of widespread malpractice or dishonesty.
And that's insane.
Does it look like that to you?
Well, it looks like a blatant lie. That's what it looks like. It looks like it's one of two things. Either the guy who said that is the most incompetent professional in the history of law enforcement, or he's lying. So either he's incompetent or he's malicious, but either way, it's very clear that he's wrong. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this 40,000 texts. That is insane.
It said that in the trigger warning article. I think that's actually a mistake. I found elsewhere references to 58,000. But there's calls for an independent investigation that's not what's happening. Instead is that the CPS, the Criminal Prosecution Service, the National Police Chiefs Council and the College of Policing have launched an improvement plan, which includes reviewing training, developing specialist disclosure experts in every police force, which they obviously need, and the provision of all evidence to the defence digitally. So, it's kind of moves in the right way, but I'm sorry, there's blatantly an independent investigation required here, because this can't be explained away as incompetent. Everybody, the sort of Alison Saunders and all of them keep talking about the police just not getting to grips with our new digital culture. It's bullshit.
Well, it's complete bullshit. And the thing that bothers me the most about this, and I just jumped 4 articles down into the article, and I'll be posting links, guys. I'll be posting links to each of these articles in the description when I upload this to YouTube. This is from the BBC from the 27th of January, and it's entitled, "All Current Rape Cases to be Urgently Reviewed Over Disclosure Fears." And the first 2 sentences here are pretty damning. It says, the Director of Public Prosecution, Alison Saunders, warned that the review could see, quote, "a number of cases," unquote, dropped. It comes after the collapse of several rape trials because evidence had not been shared with defense lawyers. See, here's the problem that I have. Let's just take it and let's just go with the narrative that maybe law enforcement and maybe the prosecutors are not up to snuff because they're just not technologically savvy. What bothers me about this is that that's not where the systemic problem is, at least not by itself. That's not the cause. That's a symptom. The cause here is that you have law enforcement agencies who do their investigation, they uncover exonerating evidence, and then they proceed to arrest these people anyway, and they proceed to refer them to prosecution. So right in the beginning, you have police officers who are pushing false allegations of sexual assault that they either know or should have known, because this is what they do for a living. It's not like they're just some random YouTuber who's just armchair quarterbacking this from the side. And I only say this because I have 10 years of legal experience. So when you have a law enforcement professional who knows better, and then he refers it to prosecution. When prosecution looks at it and they look at the evidence, they're like, oh, we have exonerating evidence here. He should have never been charged. But instead, they charge him and they force him to go through the trial process in hopes that the false allegation will stick. Because at that point, there have been so many eyes on the evidence that there is no excuse for anything else other than an innocent verdict. And what's interesting about this, and you brought up something extremely important, is and this article does too, and that's a woman named Alison Saunders. And as I switch over to the next article, this is from Justice for Men and Boys. It says, DPP Chief Alison Saunders embroiled in a row over plot to frame man. In other words, she's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about Alison Saunders and tell me what your thoughts are about her and concerns.
Well, yeah, I mean, she is a radical feminist, and her baby right from the beginning of her career is that she wants to get more rape prosecution, and she's passed on targets down to police forces. And, it looks like that's a massive part of the problem, and that gives a good motivation for why police forces might be acting in this unconscionable way. But it's like I've been talking on the Liberty Bells channel. We interviewed a guy called James Barnett from a company. He runs a company called Barnett Survivors, and he helps people who've been victims of false allegations. And his opinion is that it's not enough to change the leadership. It's not enough to sack Alison Saunders because she'll be replaced with someone of the same ilk. That we actually have to change the culture, and we have to get, everybody, we have to make everybody aware of what's going on. And, we need these independent investigations, and we need proper overhaul of the system.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely, because clearly, I mean, even though she
although
is
saying
toxic,
that, how can you keep her in her job, really?
Well, yeah, I mean, they need to get rid of her immediately. And frankly, I
Mm.
think anybody who touched a case that falsely accuses a man of a crime, especially a sex crime, I think everybody involved, you just need to sack them, fire all of them, get rid of them, because these people have demonstrated that not only are they not committing to protecting the people of the UK, they've actually demonstrated that they're willing to commit fraud to falsely imprison people innocent of crime. It's unconscionable to me, and they have violated the trust of the people and the oath of their offices completely. Um, and so we switch over. The reason I also bring it up too, I'm going to switch articles again. This is from the BBC from the 24th of January. And it says the title of the article is "Hundreds of Cases Dropped Over Evidence of Disclosure Failings," and this is what you were talking about earlier. These 900 plus cases that are dropped. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's risen dramatically over the last couple of years, and it's hard to say. I guess in a way, it's probably a positive thing because this has probably been going on for a long time. And now it's getting dealt with, and all the current rape and serious assault cases are under review. And that's a good thing. It's just really terrifying to wonder how many innocent men are, rotting away in prison right now because of what's
Right.
been going on.
Exactly. Exactly. And here's the thing that really disgusts me. So, like, we have, I mean, Count Dankula wasn't the only person who's been arrested um, for mean words on the internet. I've been reading that people have been like 50 or 60 people. I think it's a month or something. I forget, but basically, there's a lot of people being arrested. Like, there's police investigations being arrested or being had for people that are saying mean words on the internet. Right before I was permanently banned off of Twitter, I received tweets from people saying that my tweets were actually being turned over to the UK Police Department. Now, I don't know if they had anything to do with me being permanently banned from Twitter, but I know that I wasn't the only person who was subjected to that. And I'm not even a UK citizen. I've never been to the United Kingdom. And it's disgusting to me that people would try to intimidate other people going, "Oh, we're just going to turn your disagreement over to the police and we're going to have you arrested for wrong thing." That to me, as an American, is completely disgusting, because we have a long history of freedom of speech, and to see that, and then on the flip side, in addition to that, we've got almost 1,000 people who've had their cases dropped because the police and the prosecutors were falsely setting these people up to go to prison. They were attempting to send innocent people to prison. This is persecution. This is the very definition of a witch hunt. And I don't understand how the UK is not completely up in arms about this. It seems to me like maybe and you live there, so maybe I don't know, but it seems like, even though this is getting media attention, at least minimally, it doesn't seem like we're hearing much from the people in the UK. What is your feeling about how people are responding to this on the ground?
I mean, we've got separate kind of issues running there. If you're talking specifically like about hate crime, if we take that example, which I think I'm a bit clearer on what's going on, the mainstream media has been reporting that we've got, hate crime is at an epidemic scale for years, particularly since Brexit. When they're using stats that are based on this True Vision police funded website that allows any alleged victim or witness of a hate incident to officially log it. And they can do it anonymously and no evidence is required, but it goes down, in official documents as a hate incident, and everybody's using it as,
You just broke up. Are you still there?
massive problem. The most, hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You just went silent for a moment. I'm sorry.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the UK is one of the most tolerant places in the world. If you're a minority, you want to live in the UK. There's acres of support, to the point where actually it's the majority who are neglected. Certainly if you're a white man and you need some kind of support, because maybe you've got mental health problems, or maybe you're homeless, or maybe you're a victim of domestic violence, that support's not there. But if you tick a minority box, then there's specialist provision just for you. And we've got all kinds of minority individuals in all kinds of high power roles. But
Right.
the perception that the general population has is that actually we're a very intolerant, xenophobic nation, because that's what they're told. And, regarding hate crime, if you I've been looking at some of the police guidance. So the hate crime operational guidance states, and this is not just to have it logged as a number. This is to actually charge people with crimes. It states that evidence of hostility is not required. Perception of the victim or any other person is the defining factor. And police are actually warned in guidance that a perception of indifference from them when someone reports something like this equals secondary victimization.
What
And
the hell?
crime,
Wait,
yeah.
whoa. Let's stop for a minute. So let me see if I get this straight. Okay.
Hang on.
Let's say I have multiple.
Let me
Let's say I have.
thought.
Oh my God. Okay.
I
go ahead.
just want to go on to the Manchester Police Force's hate crime policy and procedure. Actually says that whether this secondary victimization is whether or not it's reasonable for them to perceive it is immaterial. Their guidance actually says that.
Okay, so if let's say I'm mentally unstable.
Act?
Yeah, let's say I'm mentally unstable. Okay, I'm a mentally unstable female. Now I know this is fantasy land, and clearly women aren't mentally unstable. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But let's just say that I am. Okay, and I think because I'm a woman of color, let's say that somebody says something that I get offended by. Now I perceive that as a hate crime because I'm batshit crazy. So I'm diagnosably batshit crazy. I'm taking antipsychotic medications. I'm under the care of a psychologist. He already knows that I'm delusional. I call the police. The police show up. They realize that, holy shit, this woman's crazy.
This woman's crazy.
But if they act indifferent to her and they understand she's crazy and not credible, then they're not only indifferent, but they're now guilty of a hate crime as well, because secondary victimization, that is retarded.
They're liable to be disciplined or something like that.
Well, they can go to jail. That's a crime.
It's not even if they are indifferent. It's the perception.
If she perceives it, or if
so they're going to have to go in there going like, oh my God, this is absolutely awful. Of course, you're very right, and we will do everything that we can. They've got to be enthusiastic about it to cover their own asses.
Gosh, that's ridiculous.
I mean, false allegations wise, I actually think that there is a growing public concern, actually, because it has just been, it's been ridiculous since maybe December last year.
Right.
There's been a new case every fucking 2 weeks.
Well, and we're going to kind of get into that too, because this is kind of leading up to something here. One of the things that I think is absolutely important. So you have law enforcement wasting resources, policing mean words on the internet. And I'm not talking about harassment. Like, I'm not talking about cyberbullying to where people are committing suicide over it or things like that. I'm not even talking about harassing people. I'm saying, you teach your dog a funny joke to upset your girlfriend, and you're going to get convicted of a hate crime and possibly go to prison. like Count
Mm-hmm.
Dankula. And then on top of that, you have, hundreds of cases, 916 charges dropped in 2016, possibly
17.
2017. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
2017. Okay. That's 3 cases a day. Charges dropped because basically people were witch hunting innocent men, and they were trying to discriminate against innocent men. Now, let's compare and contrast that to the horrible tragedy of Telford. Telford is ridiculous. I mean,
Uh-huh.
oh my God. So you have these feminists that are just their panties are in a bunch, they're upset and they're furious, and they're like, "Oh, we need to stop these sexual assailants and this and that." And it's complete bullshit. It is complete bullshit, because if that were the case, if feminism and these feminist officials were truly concerned about protecting people and protecting women from sexual assault, then why would they allow over 1,000 people, 1,000 children, to be sexually assaulted and trafficked and
Yeah,
turn a
that's
blind
in a
eye?
town of 150,000. So that's a massive proportion,
How
which
much?
is why they're calling it worse than Rotherham. There's 150,000 in the town, and up to a
Right.
thousand children abused since the 1980s.
So yeah, so we're talking basically
And
1% of their population, or close to like a third of a 1%.
mm,
So yeah, more basically, this city has
and this
more
is just
sexual
children.
assault. Yeah, and these are children. They have more child victims of sexual assault than they have people in their entire transsexual community. Just let think about that for a minute. That's insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And
So, I mean, there is going to be an independent inquiry into child sexual abuse in the next couple of months there, similar to what happened in Rotherham. But there was actually one in 2013 anyway. And so basically, I get the impression that agencies were not cooperative, because one of the councillors there has been leading calls for a Home Office commissioned inquiry, which would compel agencies to give evidence.
well, I think they should, and I think that all these officers that ignored.
I know, but I mean, God, what kind of people are working in these agencies that they're not cooperating?
Right. Right. Well, it
Mm-mm.
just sounds like they were
It's
bribed. I read something about these. Some of these people were bribed. I don't know. I mean,
mm,
in the United States, these people would be shot.
mm,
They would be absolutely shot. Like, the parents would get together and they would just shoot them. They would shoot them and they'd be like, problem solved. You
mm.
know. I mean, it is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And like some of the stories that they were talking about, like one woman apparently was taken in front of a police station and nobody stopped it. It was really just horrible. Absolutely horrible. Um and I've been looking at this and been following this, and the travesty of justice here is that, Telford, Rotherham, all these different stories continue to pop up about all this trauma, and everybody's like, "Oh, we can't stop sexual assault." Well, maybe Allison Saunders, maybe if you were more focused on the actual victims of rape instead of discriminating against Caucasian men
Mm.
and witch hunting innocent men, maybe your feminist organizations could do something about this whole thing. Because I'll tell you, I gotta say, Elizabeth, I mean, this really qualifies the UK for
Absolutely.
Dogshitistan. It's bad. It's really bad. I mean, you have all these victims. And the thing is, these are just the victims we know about.
These are just the victims we know about, and the latest rumor on the Mail is that there is an impending scandal going to break, because at the moment, what we're seeing is a lot of white and black girls coming forward, but the rumor is that there's actually an awful lot of Muslim girls and boys, children, who've been targeted, and they're not coming forward because of the code of honor within their community.
Well,
So there
yeah. I
might
mean,
be a fuckload more victims that we've got no idea about right now.
well, I know in the United States, when I wrote my book, the experts were saying the underreporting rate was about, God, I want to say it was like 70% underreporting. And if you extrapolate that to the UK, that means that 1,000 victims is basically 30% of what's really there.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking about, you know, instead of 1,000 victims, you're probably thinking 3,000 or 4,000 victims, because there's just so many more that we just don't know about. And this is the fact of the matter is that this is so many victims. How do the police, how can they look at anybody with a straight face and go, I did my job, I did what I was supposed to do, when the reality is that these children were being, they were like, it was like a mill. It was like a rape mill where they were just being wholesale raped and trafficked. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, and you know, the abuse is really significant. It's like these are violent acts, you know, and it's gangs and it's burning and, you know, feeding kids fucking drugs and all kinds of shit. It's horrendous.
Right. And again, what really is just completely, you know, it causes me to lose hope in the UK is that, again, these rapists, these human traffickers, they are confirmed human traffickers, they are confirmed rapists, are being protected by the government, they're being protected by the police departments, they're being protected by the prosecutors, they're being protected by people prominent in the community. But then you turn around and you have hags like Alison Saunders, Toxic Feminist of the Month for 2016, thanks for Justice for Men and Boys, who is going around wholesale falsely accusing and trying to falsely convict innocent men of sex crimes. And then on top of that, you have people who teach their dogs funny tricks who are getting convicted, and you're wasting resources. And then they're like, oh, we're overstaffed. We don't know what to do. We don't have enough resources to solve these problems. Well, that's because you don't give a shit about the problem. There comes a time where at some point you have to really focus on the idea that maybe your government doesn't give a shit about you. Maybe at some point you have to really protect yourself. You and your friends and your neighbors, you have to protect yourself, because when people are putting people in jail for the crime of teaching your dog a funny trick, and they are wholesale in 2017, again, we're going to go back to this because I think that this really bears some focus. 916 people had their charges dropped over failure to disclose evidence. Again, these are just the cases where the attorneys were competent. These were just the cases where the attorneys fought tooth and nail to exonerate innocent men.
And I mean, in a lot of the cases that I've been reading about, it's come down to people's, you know, independent prosecutors as well. They're having to pay for it. So if you don't have the money to put up for it, you know, you're facing a real uphill battle.
Exactly. And that's, again, that's where the miscarriage of justice is concerned. So, you know, we have innocent people who are potentially being falsely convicted. They're definitely being falsely accused. They're definitely being falsely prosecuted. And everybody's like, oh, look, you know, we have this huge rape culture, when the reality is that you have this human trafficking pedophilia farm going on right under your noses, and nobody's doing anything about it. It is absolutely insane. It is absolutely insane. And honestly, I mean, I think that your government, and again, this is from an outsider's perspective, I think your government needs an overhaul. I think that everybody who voted for any of this stuff, anybody who voted for immigration, anybody who's talking about, oh, we should stay in the EU, anybody who supported Alison Saunders or any of the police officers or any of these people who went after these witch hunts, who falsely accused and falsely arrested all these men, people need to confront these people in the public square. I mean, there should be a conversation going, look, all you people need to be called to account. If you're part of a witch hunt and you are trying to prosecute innocent people, you should lose your job at the very least. Because that's gender-based discrimination. You are discriminated against men, and I know the UK has laws against discrimination based on gender.
Well, yeah, I mean the Equality Act does apply to everybody, but there is not one single example of it being used to successfully to challenge discrimination against men.
And that's my point. And that's what misandry
And
looks like.
it goes on all the time, very visibly and obviously, and there are cases all over the place. But, you know, they're just not being prosecuted.
Right. It's like
basically.
I said, it's complete misandry, and it's systemic misandry. And then on top of that, though, these children they're being victimized. And you know, in family law, I've done a lot of research when it comes to outcomes of children who were basically subjected to being, or have been turned into child victims, and their outcomes in life are far worse. The biggest determining factor of whether or not a child grows up to be a criminal is whether or not they were victimized as a child. That's the single biggest factor. And you have all these broken homes created by feminism's war on marriage and feminism's war on men, destroying intact families. And you are setting these children up to be raped, to be preyed upon, to be kidnapped, and to be sold or pressured into child trafficking. And like you said earlier, you know, they're using drugs. So they're being addicted to drugs, and they are destroying generations of families by doing this. And they're being allowed to do so. Like you said, how long was Telford going on?
Since the 1980s is what that's the time period we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So basically you're talking about since second wave feminism was in fashion. So there you go. So, you know, second wave feminism took control in the 60s and 70s, and in the 1980s, you have child traffickers going in who are just responding and taking advantage of this with impunity. And it is absolutely disgusting. If feminism was about this
it's
at all...
all right. It's all right, because we've banned walk-on girls from darts, and everything's going to be fine now.
Clearly.
As long as no adult women who actually consent are being objectified, then we can rest on our laurels and our virtues. Am I right?
Right. There you go. So talk to me a little bit more. I'm going to throw some petitions on the screen. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Talk about the petitions real quick.
Yeah, so really quickly, I mean, these petitions are only open to UK citizens, and there are equivalent petitions on like change.org, but in the UK, that means nothing. The only petitions that can get anything done are the government petitions. So there's 3 that I've shared with you. One is to free Dankula, which is actually not live right now, because the process with the government petitions is that 5 people have to sign it, and then so it goes back to like some bureaucrat, and they read it over and make sure that it meets certain standards. There's another one, which is to end hate speech laws and create Freedom of Speech Act, which is desperately needed, absolutely desperately needed. And the final one is to establish a minister for men, because we have a minister for women and equalities, but we don't have one for men. So there you go. We'd like someone to be looking at these issues.
Exactly. So yeah, it's like I said, the whole thing is just it's a complete shit show. And the thing that's important here is that it's not just that Count Dankula was convicted. It was that they went after Count Dankula. They witch hunted Count Dankula. They witch hunted last year at least 916 other men, plus everybody the police is pursuing for mean words on the internet right now, for just, you know, common sense type of stuff. And again, I'm not talking about cyberbullying and harassment. I'm just talking about silly stuff, right? They're doing all this, and they're spending all these resources and all these millions of dollars doing this. And then they turn around and you find out that for generations, they've been allowing child sex grooming gangs to run rampant throughout the country. And more importantly, it seems like the police, the prosecutors, and the feminists have been protecting them. Because, you know, if the guy is a Pakistani or he's a Middle Eastern guy, you know, to go after him, if he perceives that it's hate speech, there it is.
We call them Asian here. We very carefully only refer to these men as Asian because, you know, they might be Japanese.
Right. Or Korean. or,
Indeed.
or Vietnamese, right?
Mm.
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. It just, again, it blows my mind because, again, the thing about Count Dankula is that not only was he and his persecution a travesty of justice, but they were doing that at the same time that they were giving government cover for child rape gangs. And that's not hyperbole. That is the reality of the situation, is that they were creating rape mills so that children could get persecuted. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it's just sort of damn near impossible to get your head around. It's like, it's a mind fuck. And I mean, the only kind of, I tell you what, it's like just been a source of such great memes. There are such great memes going around at the moment. All you can do to get through these times is fucking laugh.
Right.
But we're all putting our own safety at risk, or our own this in the mem war.
Well, here's a little bit of a spoiler alert for you, and possibly a pro tip. If you're in the UK and you want to speak out against this, just remember, they can't arrest you all.
Absolutely.
They can. I mean, UK can put a stop to this tomorrow. They can definitely put a stop to this tomorrow. And but the sad part about it is, again, citizens of conscience, citizens who are decent people, they're being cowed by the government, and they're being intimidated by the government to say, oh, if you speak out against us, we're going to arrest you for hate speech. And if you're a white male, we're going to persecute you with false allegations. But if you're a minority and you're running a rape gang where you are kidnapping and drugging and forcing young children into prostitution and wholesale rape, oh, that's fine. That's fine. This is one of the reasons. This is a perfect example of why I always say feminism was never about equality. Because I'll tell you, the thing that's crazy about this entire thing is the deafening silence of feminists when it comes to Telford and Rotherham and all the rest of it. Yet they turn around and in the same breath, they're like, oh, this guy raped somebody, and it turns out that they were lying the whole time. It wasn't even that they were incompetent. It's that they were lying. Because these are professionals. When you have law enforcement, when you have prosecutorial organizations, and you have the courts who all get together and conspire to convict innocent men, these are professionals. These are people with PhDs in law. They have, bachelor's degrees in criminal justice. And these people, this is what they do for a living. And many of these people have done this for 15, 20, 30 years and have been mentored by some of the greatest minds in the UK law enforcement. When you have that kind of institutional knowledge behind you, you can't with a straight face say that it's incompetence. You can't with a straight face say it was neglect or it was accidental. This is systemic misandry, period.
And I mean, as far as saying that the police have just been dumb goes, there have been legal professors raising the, whistleblowing for years over these failures to disclose evidence.
Right.
And there have been reports and there have been recommendations, and they've all been completely ignored by the police and by the likes of Alison Saunders.
Yeah, it's very grim. And I mean,
but I mean, you're right. If you look at the kind of development that's gone on in our country since, say, the 70s, everything that we're talking about has just got worse and worse and worse. And, if it's following the trajectory that it is, it's going to get, just, I don't know how bad. And so people do need to take a stand now because, I mean, if people had taken a stand, say, in the 80s, they would have faced social ostracism. Taking a stand now, you're risking your liberty. Taking a stand in another 10 years or 20, what the fuck is going to happen if we don't reverse the trend? Right.
I mean, and the problem is that it's getting to a boiling point. And I think that what you're going to start seeing is that you're going to start seeing it turn into like like Germany or Sweden, where you have no-go zones. And I would imagine that probably you have some soft no-go zones now. I'm honestly be surprised if you guys didn't actually have Sharia patrols on the streets already.
Yeah, we do. And the other place that we have them, of course, is in our prisons. The prisons are horrendous. There was a guy a couple of years ago, and sent to prison for leaving a bacon sandwich on the steps of a mosque, with, in fairness, a St. George's flag said no mosques on it, which I would call free speech personally. Sure. But they went to prison, but this guy ended up dead in his cell, and it's never actually come out whether he killed himself or he was murdered. But there's a lot of talk about how, first of all, an awful lot of radicalization goes on in prison, terrorist radicalization, and how it's a very dangerous place to be if you're not, Muslim or an sort of sympathizer.
Right. Well, and it's not like they're known for peace. So, they're not very tolerant of different
Oh, they are here.
So, yeah, it's the whole thing it's a shit show. Elizabeth, thank you for coming. I appreciate you kind of sharing this information with me. Let's go ahead and open it up for Q&A now, guys. So if you have any questions, I know there aren't a lot of questions just yet of either myself or the guest. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now, and we'll field them as quick as we can. Lily, do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, we have a couple. Ready for me to go ahead?
Do it. Do it to it.
All right. So the first one, kind of a question, kind of not. I know you're not Jewish, but Passover is on Friday. Have you eaten any matzo recently? If you haven't yet, egg matzo is great. I recommend fully.
Good to know. Not Jewish.
Yeah,
haven't paid
thanks
attention.
for that.
Yes.
No.
Well, just in case.
Good looking out.
All right.
I've got some Jewish friends. Maybe I'll ring them up and see if they can hook me up.
There you go. Good looking out.
Good luck.
All right.
All right. For the guest, what does Dankula's conviction mean for the comedians of the UK? How will it affect them, do you think?
It's actually been it's been very divisive. So there's, a lot of comedians, most of the comedians who go on the TV saying like, this is great, and I'm all for free speech, but there has to be a limit and those kind of things. But there's actually been a lot of comedians like Jonathan Pye, and actually this guy called David Baddiel, who is a bit of a kind of mainstream comedian, but he's actually come out and said, this is fucking ridiculous, and this is a terrible sort of thing for freedom of speech and for comedy. So we're sorting the wheat from the chaff, I'd say, and I hope that it actually makes the public kind of more aware of who they want to engage with.
Right. Who was that comedian that you shared with me a while ago? I forget his name.
Oh, I know. It's Will Franken, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, guys, if you have not seen Will Franken,
he's my homeboy.
Yeah, Will Franken is awesome. Very unpolitically correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's absolutely. I mean, I call him the greatest working in the UK today, and he's actually American, but he's always been an Anglophile, and so he came over here thinking he was going to find something fantastic, and didn't. Unfortunately, he was very disappointed.
Okay.
Actually, quite an interesting backstory, because a couple of years ago, he thought that actually a woman
That's funny.
He's now, like, you know, he's completely the sort of mainstream comedy machine utterly despise him. But he's funny as fuck. And we put him on last at the International Men's Day conference we put on last year, Messages for Men, and we're inviting him this year. He's also going to be at the International Conference for Men's Issues in London in July. So it's nice. He's kind of becoming the darling comedian of the men's rights movement here. And that was my work.
Nice.
So everybody should thank me for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Atta girl. Atta girl. There you go. Cyber pat on the head. No, it's fine. No, he's awesome. Will Franken is awesome. So
yeah, search on YouTube Will Franken versus Jihad.
Beautiful.
And you'll see a fantastic gig in London. And it's got a brilliant moment where some woman calling him racist, so you know it must be good.
Right. Okay, next question.
All right, next question is for you, DDJ.
Okay. Why
are 80% of your videos about drama with other YouTubers?
Oh, that's actually kind of funny. So I since October of last year, I've created 77 videos, not including this one. And of those 77 videos, I would say probably at most 15 is are about issues that I've had some concerns about. So I guess if you do some simple math and you look at, maybe we'll just say 15, and I'm being courteous here, 15 compared to 77, that's not 80%. That's just that's just basically spurging. I think really the first issue is this. Let me go ahead and take it first step. So there was a group of YouTubers last year who were trying to scam the MGTOW community out of their money, and they created basically they created a red pill coin that was valueless, and they were using it as a Ponzi scheme. And so what they were doing is they were selling this valueless Bitcoin to individuals with the understanding that these people would then turn around and donate those Bitcoins back to the content creators who were selling them. And then those content creators could then turn around and sell them again, creating a Ponzi scheme. It was a big scam. It originally was actually uncovered by the groundwork for metaphysics of MGTOW, Marcus. And it was something that I latched on to, and I started looking as far as that's concerned. And there were a variety of YouTubers that came out in support of that, who basically they didn't know, or they were getting some sort of compensation, or they were closely related to those people that were doing it. It was a complete scam. All those YouTubers went away. Right after that ended, there was a guy that decided, now during this time, there were some false allegations put forth about a prominent YouTuber who I was on like one of his Discord servers for a week after he was falsely accused of doxing. Back in December of last year, people started harassing me. I was harassed on Twitter in direct messages. I was harassed with ats, people adding me on Twitter. And then, of course, there were some people who were, even by MGTOW standards, were very mentally unstable, who started making videos about me. And I mean, when I say videos about me, they were just, oh my God, they were spurging bad. I think the one person was making, of like the last 12 videos when I talked about him, he was making, of the last 12 videos, I think 10 of them were about me. And they were like these super long, like spurg streams. Plus he was, contacting me directly and doing everything he could to get my attention. And then once I realized that this guy was not only a rape apologist, I said, look, if he threatened a woman, he threatened to stab a woman in the throat. I showed the screenshot of that. He lied about everybody. And then I was like, look, one of his real close buddies was arrested in Canada for the same thing he was doing. So I put up the law enforcement information to share that. Well, then he got white knighted by some of the people who were falsely accusing the other YouTuber of doxing. So then they started repeating these allegations against me. It was really retarded. And it's really sad because I did shoe short videos, not only showing that this person was disingenuous, they were dishonest, and they were lying, but I also showed that the person they were white knighting for, the guy who was mentally insane, was actually lying to them. And he lied to him at least twice that I could demonstrate openly. And now, like, the guy is like, I don't know, he's like streamed for 20 hours about me. It's really pathological. Like, I don't even have ex-girlfriends that have stalked me the way that this guy has. I mean, like, legit pathological. And it's really weird, and it's really sad in a way. And I'm going to kind of tangent a little bit because this is something that I've been kind of wanting to talk about, and that is that when it comes to this, it's really crazy. I wrote the book, obviously, #Shill Alert, The Feminist Lie. It was never about equality. One of the things that I've really focused on in that book was how feminism has really gone out of its way to destroy families by incentivizing destruction of relationships, by telling women that, anytime that they commit to a person, that they're settling, and they turn around and they destroy these children's lives. And I go into chapter 3 about the differences between the outcomes of children who live in intact families with both biological parents present. Then they turn around and they contrast that with children of families whom the families are destroyed. And one of the prominent features of these children coming from broken homes is that they're mentally unstable. They are, completely mentally unstable. They are going back and harassing people, and they are flipping out. They can't socialize with people correctly. They don't know social cues. They end up going and having drug problems. They end up having alcohol problems. They end up having addictive personalities. And again, it's not any fault of these children. It's not any fault, even the women. I mean, feminism has destroyed women's lives as well. But the thing that's full circle, the thing that really blows me away is that while I did the research on this, while I saw this in the family law, I never actually really considered what the impact would be on YouTube. And it's really interesting to watch this play out, because some of these people who are the most vociferous, the ones that are the spurgs, the ones that are they're completely mentally unstable, the ones that have these streams where either they are breaking down into fits of abusive anger and vitriol toward people, or the other people on the other side, the people that are having mental breakdowns on the streams, whether or not they're drunk, or whether or not they're on drugs, or whether or not they should have been taking their meds and they didn't, or whether or not they're streaming from their, somebody else's house. Maybe they're renting a room from somebody. You can see that the detritus that is their life from the broken homes that they were raised in, that were probably created by feminism's war on marriage, men, and families. And it's sad because a lot of these guys, women, whoever, who were on the internet, you start seeing content creators now that are doing the same things. They're mentally unstable. They're pathological. They're obsessed and focused. Their mean words go from just mean words on the internet, to gang stalking, to cyber stalking, to focusing all this attention. And they don't care. The thing is sad about it is they're so mentally unstable, they don't care about the truth. They don't care about the ethics of the issues. They don't care about any of the facts, the verifiable facts and observable reality. I mean, it's kind of funny. And just to give you an example of how retarded this really is, one of the accusations that people had against me, they're like, oh, well, DDJ is a doxer because he shared public information. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. To me, that's insane. And the reason that's insane is because we have phone books. that you can open it up and look for somebody's phone number. It's public information. You can go to a library and you can look somebody up. It's public information. If you have somebody's real name and you know kind of where they live, you can go pay a background check company and you can get their criminal record. You can research the criminal record in local courts for free. It's all public information. There was an article done about a YouTuber who he ended up having sex with a mentally incompetent Hispanic woman. And apparently the journalists who did the investigation, they apparently had access to public court records. Is that doxing? Is that, I mean, it used to be, and again, I'm old enough to understand that it used to be that we would judge a person's character based on the information that they put out in the public to have. I mean, that's how we did it. So, you know, if you wanted to hire somebody at a job, the smart person would do a background check. They would learn a little bit about this person. They would learn about their character. You know, if you want to loan somebody money, you check into their credit to see whether or not this person is of good character or not. So when it comes to some of these people who are on the internet, they don't have any sense of ethics and they don't have any sense of morality. And so when they say, oh, well, you know, person A is a doxer because they shared public information. Well, I disagree with that. And I know that there are people who are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. Whatever. You can do that. But I've said my piece about some of these people, and you'll notice that this is common sense. This is observable reality. These are verifiable facts. And I am never going to say anything in private that I won't say in public. And I've seen a lot of these people, and they turn, for some reason, they're upset that I have this ethical standard where I don't deal with false allegations very well. And they get upset about this. And the reason that I bring this up is because the couple people that have come after me recently because they just got pathological on me, I don't think they're alone. Based on the comments that I've seen in my comment section, it's very clear to me that that number one, they're not operating alone. And number two, they're pathological about this, which means somebody's fueling the fire somewhere. And you have people who have good reputations who are they are denying observable reality. And again, we see this with children from broken homes. I'll put money on it that the majority of these people out here, and not just the ones that are spurging on me, but the ones that are like the drama streamers and the people that are doing, like, I mean, I don't know if like the blood sports people or not, but you know, again, the people that really try to amp up the drama, I'll put money on it that they're from broken homes, that they are from family life situations that have been traumatic, that have been a direct result of feminism's war on the family. And it's a tragedy, because I don't hate any of these people. I don't know why they come to me to die, but whatever. You know, the reality is that the thing about liars is that you can always demonstrate a person is lying when they are. But once you know that they're a liar, you don't have to waste your time with them anymore. There's no need to talk to them. There's no need to talk about them. You're just like, oh, that person's a liar. And you move on with your day. You've got other things to do. I'm in the process of writing a book. You know, my youngest son has just turned 18. I've got other things to do. And I don't have the time or the energy or anything to deal with this unnecessary drama. Or anybody who turns around and says, oh, well, you know, 80% of your videos are about this. No, they're not. I have 77 videos on my channel alone, and I've been streaming with Turd Flinging Monkey since late April of last year. And I can tell you right now that if you take all those videos in totality, 15 videos at most, and I'm being generous here, 15 videos is really nothing. But at the end of the day, the thing that's important is this. If people want to come and harass me or whatever, that's up to them. If they want to have a civil conversation, that's fine too. I'm happy to have a civil disagreement. But it's a shame that feminism's war on marriage and families has gotten so bad that now we are seeing the detrimental outcomes of these lost boys on the internet. It's like the Pinocchio story. There's a portion of the Pinocchio story where I think in the Disney movie, they call it Paradise Island, where these boys and these children are left without their parents. And they can do whatever they want. It's just like a child of a broken home, you know. Single mom is forced to work. She has to go and she has to, you know, make a living. and the boys are lost. The children are lost. It was the same thing with Amanda Todd. Amanda Todd, I think she was from a broken home, and she was on the internet because, again, there was nobody around to provide her the mentorship that she needed, or provided her the parenting that she clearly needed, or even the family structure. It's the same thing with a lot of these YouTubers. They don't have family structure at home. They don't have good mentorship. They don't have close connections with the people around them. And so they end up streaming on a single person for 15 or 20 hours at a time. And then they don't even have the strength of ethics to even tell the truth or to stand by it. And I'll tell you, you can go back, and this is something that I would challenge anybody to prove me wrong in the comment section of this video. If Kraut was a doxer, as he was accused of in late December of 2017, where are the victims? Who was doxxed? When were they doxxed? How were they doxxed? And what dox was released? Everything was big on accusation, but it was completely devoid of facts. And anybody who spoke out in defense of Kraut was attacked. That should be a demonstration enough to show that the YouTube community is suffering from a cancer caused by feminism's war on the family. And now we have YouTube content creators who come from these broken homes, and they're just trying to figure it out, and they're not mentally stable enough to do anything other than go pathologically obsessed on other people and creating drama, and then turn around and accuse their targets and their potential victims as those who are creating the drama, when the reality is that people like me who put an end to the drama, that's all we're doing. We're putting an end to the drama. I'm a parent, and I'm a father of 4, and I've seen children lash out before. And they lash out exactly the same way as some of these YouTubers are. And unfortunately, they need structure, they need discipline, and they need accountability. Now, I can't provide any of that. But what I can provide is verifiable facts and observable reality. Whether or not they choose to accept it is up to them. So, apologize for a little bit of a rant, because I know that Elizabeth has to go soon. So let's go to the next question.
All right. Next question. What do you think sentencing for Dunkula will be? Prison time, a fine, etc. I think that's for the guest.
Right. I think that the most likely thing, I heard he was getting the sentence on the 23rd, which would have been Friday.
Real life.
All
Real
right.
life.
Sorry, my partner's
Real life
reminded
calling.
me it's late.
Real life calling.
Got it. Okay.
But I heard that. Okay, darling, thank you. The most likely outcome was like 3 years of community service, basically, plus a course. Our criminal justice system is big on courses, so some kind of course in how not to hate minorities or something.
Got it. Okay. Well, it sounds like you have family responsibilities to attend to. So, I don't want to keep you from that, and I definitely don't want to, offend your other family members. So thank you for showing up today. Lily, let's go ahead and we'll stop all the questions for the guest at this point. Let her exit stage left, and let's just deal with the rest of the questions and end the stream. Thank you again, Elizabeth.
Good night, all.
Good night.
My pleasure. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you.
Bye,
well.
Lily.
Bye.
All right. Do we have any other questions that are not for her?
I was about to say, you say no questions for the guest, and it's like question for guest, question for guest, question for guest.
Sorry about that, guys. So she's got 2 children, and she's got
go.
family responsibilities as well. So I apologize for that. Go ahead.
All right. DDJ, do you still plan on being with the turd flinging monkey in his streams for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't. As long as he wants me around, as long as I'll be there. I mean, he and I get along extremely well, and we're able to play off each other extremely well through the streams. I mean, and I have a lot of fun. I mean, he's great. Feeding the cat is great. Monkey Business Discord, the guys are there, are great. It's an awesome community, and yeah, and the nice thing is that he's mature enough, and thankfully so, that even when he and I disagree on the little areas that we have in the past, we can remain in civil disagreement on certain things and still remain good friends. And I consider Turd Flinging Monkey probably my best friend on the internet, and he has been nothing but supportive of me right from the beginning. And so, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, if we did this for another 5 years, that would be awesome, or more. That would be awesome.
Okay, well, there's one more. I don't know if it's like an actual question or not. Do you want me to ask it anyway?
Absolutely, go for it. What the hell?
Okay. I'd ask a question, but still banned from chat. I'm wondering if this works. It's in regards to the Bukkake Choke Slams.
Oh yeah, Disjunctive 12. I see that question. For some reason, I don't know why you're still banned, and I'm a little bit Twitch-tarded. I'll try to make sure that you're unbanned so that you can comment and chat, and I apologize for that. I know you've reached out to me before. I did go through my little bans thing, but again, apparently the short bus makes all the stops with my Twitch knowledge. So if you were accidentally banned recently, because there were a bunch of spurgs in the chat and you accidentally got clicked instead, I apologize. Reach out to me directly, send me a private message via Twitch so that I know who you are. Disjunctive 12, I'll remember your name since you asked the question, and I'll see what I can do to get you guys unbanned. I apologize deeply for that. Sorry about that.
Well, that's congratulations. You've made it through the onslaught. You're done.
All right. And Disjunctive 12, just to be clear, I just saw a notification in chat. Your ban has been removed. Congratulations. Looks like Broccoli took care of you. Thank you, Broccoli. All right. Is no more questions? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Beautiful. All right. Everybody, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate all the support I've received from all of my patrons. I do appreciate the support I've received from Dollhouse, all my subscribers, those of you who've purchased my book and has left a positive review. Thank you. And if you have any subjects of videos that you want me to do, definitely shoot me an email. You can always reach me at misandrytoday.com. The link is down here below in the Twitch chat. You can support me on Patreon. All my videos are mirrored on Bitchute and on MGTOW.com. And then, of course, if you want to pick up my book, there's a link to that as well. And definitely check out Lily Even 32's channel. It's Lily Even 32 on YouTube. She just started making videos again. So yeah, check it all out. And with that, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Bye.